Outside, near the Horse and Jockey pub, it was raining lightly and it was cold. The few regulars were undeterred by the weather, but Captain Ahab and the stranger sat at a table in the far corner of the room. Sipping Wells Bombardiers, they talked quietly. Ahab, that wasn't his real name, he told the stranger. Names didn't matter to his crew. As long as they did their job, he didn't care who they were or what they were running from. "I didn't know there were still cargo barges on this waterway," said the stranger. "There aren't many," replied the grim old sailor. "When the weather is good, we attract a lot of attention from passengers on tourist ships. I've equipped my boat with a cabin, a galley, and a few bunks for the crew so we can stay as far away from the vacationers as possible." "How do you survive?" "As long as there is a desire to take any cargo, no matter how smelly and dirty it is, there is money to be made. Rusty equipment, coal, and manure keep us from getting bored. The Banshee is famous for always getting the job done." The captain shook his head, and his shaggy beard swayed. The stranger, staring into his mug, was also bearded, but his beard was thick, full, and dark, unlike his companion's, which had white strands. The stranger ordered another mug. Before he could open his mouth, the captain asked him a question. "So you knew her when she was married? Where is she from?" "I'd rather not say. She didn't tell us anything. I don't even know how she found out we needed a cook. She just showed up in Sheffield, came on board, and said she could work. From the way she was dressed, I thought she was a crazy squatter, but when she opened her mouth, I realized she had once lived in comfort. I decided she was an alcoholic who had squandered all her money and was willing to do anything to get money for her next bottle." "And yet you hired her." "I still don't know why. I took her to the cabin and told her to clean herself up before dinner. I said we were leaving in an hour, and if she didn't look presentable or the food wasn't good, I'd drop her off at the next stop." "She must have worked out for you." "She's been on board for over 6 years. When you saw her at Tesco today, did she look the same as before?" "Yes. I was surprised how little she had changed." "She's changed a lot. You should have seen her when she first came on board. Did you notice how she glowed?" Number I didn't get close to her. "Do you know anything about her past? She slept with everyone?" "Yes." "Then it's Fanny. So she's still doing it." "I wouldn't say that. Either she is or she isn't. How else can you tell? She found religion. How is that possible if she's a promiscuous prostitute?" The captain paused for a moment, then went on the offensive. "Are you a private investigator?" "What? No one comes to Eggsboro on business and happens to meet a woman they used to know. Who sent you?" The stranger thought before answering. "Her brother and sister hired a professional to find her. That's how I found out where to come. I'm their friend. I'm here to pass on the information. Her whole family is dead." "Did she tell you that?" "In a way, yes. But it was the other way around. As far as they were concerned, she had been dead for a long time. Now they want to know how she's living. I brought some photos of the 3 of them and recent photos of her brother and sister. If you want, I can bring them." "I believe you. So they've forgiven her and want her to come home?" "They want to know what she's been up to. I believe they hope she's changed. You told me she's still living a promiscuous lifestyle. I'll pass on your report. It's up to them to decide." The captain stared at the man silently for almost a minute. He took a deep breath before speaking. "Her brother and sister don't deserve her coming back." The stranger was stunned. "How can you say that? You don't even know them." "You're right. It's hard to find the right words. They don't deserve her, and neither do we. I think that's what I mean." "Why did you say we? You don't know me." "I didn't mean you. We means me and my crew. We don't deserve Fanny, and her brother and sister don't deserve her. No one does." The captain fell silent. The stranger waited a moment, then lost his patience. "Go on! Go on!" The captain shrugged. "All right. I'll tell you about Fanny. Pass it on to her brother and sister. Hopefully, they'll decide to disown her. If they do, we'll take care of her and be grateful for every day she lives with us. I don't understand what you're talking about. It doesn't matter. Just listen. I'll tell you all the dirt you came here for. I told you how Fanny got her job with us. She turned out to be a better cook than her predecessor, but the boys still picked on her. They do that to all the cooks. It breaks up the monotony when the cooks yell at them. Fanny never yelled at anyone. When they complained, she quietly replied that she would try harder. After a while, they stopped teasing her, especially since the food was getting better and better. We couldn't believe how good she was. The grocery bills stayed the same, so I asked her what was going on. She said she was studying cookbooks to cook even better. I told her I didn't have the money to pay her more, and she said it didn't matter. We started talking about her dishes and asking her questions. She talked about everything except herself. If one of us asked a personal question, she didn't get angry. She just looked sad and went to her room. Around that time, Ben first mentioned the glow. When she left the room, it seemed to get darker. One evening after dinner, we started talking about food. Rusty started by saying what a wonderful cook she was, and then everyone else joined in. She sat there looking at each of us and started crying. It was the first time we had ever seen her react that way to our words. Like idiots, we kept praising her. We didn't exaggerate too much. Finally, she ran off to her cabin, and we didn't see her until the next morning. That evening, she made an amazing dinner. We weren't stupid. We praised her at every opportunity, and the dinners continued to be magnificent. Then one evening, she struck us all dumb. She came out of the galley after cleaning up and cleared her throat. We were in the middle of a poker game, but we all turned to her. I remember exactly what she said. "You've all made me so happy that tonight I have to make one of you happy, or at least try. Who wants me to make him happy tonight?" We stared at her until she said, "No one wants to volunteer?" Old Rusty raised his hand and she motioned him over. When he stood next to her, facing us, she said, "Captain, come here, please." I went over, and she put me behind them. She turned Rusty so that they were both facing me. She said, "We can't be happy until we're married, so Captain Ahab will marry us." Leaning over, she whispered in my ear. She told me to keep it short and gave me 2 names. I said to her, "Repeat after me. I, Vanessa, call upon all present to witness that I take you, Sterling, to be my lawful husband." Rusty looked at me when I said, "I, Sterling," and didn't start repeating until she nudged him in the ribs. When he finished his part, I said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." I stepped back, and she waved to everyone to be quiet. Then she said, "Now that we're married, we can go on our honeymoon." She took Rusty by the hand, dragged him into her cabin, and closed the door. Everyone was stunned. The rest of us waited. After about 20 minutes, I tried to resume the game, but the others showed no interest. We sat there for over an hour before the first guy went to bed. Jack told me he waited over 3 hours before giving up. The next morning, Rusty was asleep in his bed and had to be shaken several times to wake him up. Fanny didn't say a word about the previous night, and neither did anyone else. That evening, the same thing happened, word for word, only this time Jack was dragged into her cabin. It's been going on like this ever since, only now she no longer asks for volunteers. We take turns. "So she has a different man every night?" asked the stranger. "Except for the days when she has her period and once a year? What does she do to you?" No one talks about that. It's common knowledge because everyone knows, but the details remain a secret. "Will you at least tell me that? Does she ever talk to you?" She asks questions. I thought I had heard everything, but she asked me about things that were difficult for me to talk about. She wasn't shy at all, but I had to get drunk first to loosen up. "I don't understand you." She worked on me until she found out what I liked and what I didn't like. She would try something and ask how I liked it. Then she would try something else and ask again. That's how it was the first few times I was with her. After that, she knew everything about me and did what I liked. She still tries new things to see if I like them. And does she do that with all of you? I don't know because we never talk about it, but I think you're right. Is that all she talks about when you're alone together? I asked her what she liked, and she said it didn't matter because the only thing that mattered was making me happy. I figured out a few things she likes anyway, and I did them as often as I could. What really turns her on is driving me crazy. Then she lets go, and that's all I can say. So you never asked her why she turns into a bitch every night? The stranger's voice was full of contempt and disgust. The captain quickly stood up and almost fell over. He grabbed the table to steady himself and slowly sat down. His eyes flashed. If you want me to tell you something, you're going to have to apologize right now. What right do you have to talk like that? Tell her family what you want, but I won't listen to you insult Fanny. All right, said the stranger in a calmer voice. I apologize for saying that. It won't happen again. Did she tell you anything else about herself? Yes. One night we were standing on the dock in Skipton, and I invited her to dinner at the Cock and Bottle. We both had a few drinks, and I kept up with her until she told me something. Like what? She said her name used to be Vanessa, and Sterling was her ex-husband's name. She said he was the most amazing man in the world. She said she was beautiful, vain, and cruel. She had her pick of guys, and she chose him because he was the most handsome. She said she was too selfish to love anyone. She treated him as if he was lucky to have married her. After the wedding, she completely dominated him. To prove that she could still seduce any man, she had several affairs. She didn't try very hard to hide what was going on, but he trusted her completely and didn't suspect anything for a long time. Most of their friends knew she was cheating on him. She thought he probably knew but was afraid to say anything. This made her treat him even worse. When he finally found out, he didn't confront her. One night, while she was with another man, he took his clothes and personal belongings out of the house. He left his ring and a note saying, "I still love you," with the divorce papers. She told me that he gave her the house and everything they had together. He didn't even show up in court. As soon as word got out that they had split up, she became the most popular divorcee in town. She could pick and choose young men and loved to use her power over them. She liked to torment them and make them jump through hoops before she would show them any mercy. What really made her feel special was taking a man away from another woman. Her parents and siblings were ashamed of her lifestyle and kept their distance from her. She didn't care until she met her former classmate. This woman's boyfriend was one of her casual lovers, and she knew she went to church. Fanny said she didn't hide her contempt when they talked. The woman surprised her by saying she prayed for Fanny's soul and that God loved her. When Fanny asked why she said that, the woman confessed that she used to hate Fanny until she met her vicar. He advised her to love Fanny and pray for her because she was on the path to destruction. Fanny laughed and said that if that were true, she would leave the woman's boyfriend. The woman didn't even flinch at the insult. Instead, she said that her pastor had told her that there were many prostitutes in the Bible and that God had created them for a reason. The vicar spoke to her boyfriend and several other young men from the church who had slept with Fanny. They all assured him that they were just using Fanny for fun, so they wouldn't have to pressure their girlfriends before the wedding. The vicar also told her that in other countries, it is traditional for boys to go to prostitutes, and often their own fathers arrange it. That way, on his wedding night, the boy knows what to do. The vicar told her former classmate that if she ever spoke to Fanny about her fiancé who had proposed to her that week, she should thank her for preparing her future husband, because it would lead to a happy marriage. She said that the vicar asked her to tell Fanny that if things ever got too hard for her, he would be happy to help. Fanny said she pretended not to care, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. Gradually, she broke up with all the men she had been seeing and spent most of her days drunk in her empty house. She ran into her ex-husband several times, usually in a store or a restaurant. Every time he saw her, his face darkened. At first she liked it because it showed that he still hadn't forgotten her. In her imagination, she still controlled him. When she was drunk, she began to see his face in front of her. This time, his sadness depressed her. The next time she ran into him at the grocery store, she looked at him, ran out of the store, and drove home so fast she almost flew off the road. As painful as her drunken hallucinations were, seeing him in person was much worse. She became obsessed with preventing it from happening again. She locked herself in the house, but someone came to check on her. She decided that if she continued like this, her family might send her to a mental hospital. She needed to go somewhere where no one knew her and no one asked questions. That's how she ended up on my barge. You probably know most of the story.
Part of it,
the stranger said thoughtfully, stroking his beard. Did she tell you anything else? No. Only I asked her why she insisted on marrying Sterling every night before taking one of us into her cabin. She said she'd appreciate it if I didn't tell anyone. But after each wedding, she didn't care who she was with. She imagined she was with Sterling and did everything she could to please him. She was preparing for the day when she would make him the happiest man on earth, especially in bed and at the table. Her dream was to give him everything he wanted. She said she was grateful to me and the team for making her life happier, even if she would never have the opportunity to use what she had learned. But it turned out she was wrong. So she found someone else after all? What happened to him? Did he find out about her and dump her? No. It's much stranger than that. For a while, there was a young guy on my team named Billy. He didn't have any experience, but he was strong and could work for two. He was good-looking, and when we left town, he always had one or two girls chasing after him. He didn't chase women or go to prostitutes. At first, when he wasn't working, he would drink coffee and sit pensively on the barge or in the coffee shop. When I hired him, I told him what happened every night. But I could see he was shocked when he witnessed a wedding for the first time. At first, he didn't participate or talk to Fanny, but as the guys got to know him and started to like him, they pushed him to get married just to see what it was like. Finally, he agreed, and the next day, he was a different person. After that, he started living like everyone else. About 6 months after he started working, he asked me to give him a couple of weeks off to visit his family. He had to wait until we had a break between flights, but he was patient. I wasn't sure he would come back because it seemed like he had overcome all the problems that had brought him to me. But 2 weeks later, he showed up again. About 3 days later, we docked in Foul Ridge, and the guys had the day off. I was about to go into town when I saw a pretty girl walking back and forth near the barge. I went to the bathroom to wash up before leaving. A couple of minutes later, I heard screams. I ran out and looked around. The screams were coming from the galley. A pretty young girl was rolling around on the floor with Fanny. She was pulling Fanny's hair and trying to scratch her face. Fanny was screaming. I pulled the woman off Fanny. She wasn't that big, but she had a lot of energy and tried to break free from my grip until I gave her a good slap. That stunned her and calmed her down a bit. I held her on my lap, hugging her tightly. Fanny got up and came over to us. She asked the woman why she had attacked her. The woman started calling her a whore, a bitch, a slut, and many other names until I squeezed her a little and she started to choke. Fanny asked her if she was Constance. This made the girl angry again until I stopped her. Fanny told me I could let her go. She needed to talk to Constance in her cabin. I told Fanny no way. Fanny walked up to the girl and told her that if she wanted Billy, she had to apologize to me for causing trouble. Then she had to come to her cabin and listen to her. The girl stared at her and didn't say a word. Fanny said that if she didn't agree, she would be taken ashore and would never see Billy again. The girl cried and finally gave in and told me she forgave her. Fanny made her swear by God and glory that she would come to her cabin for an hour. They stayed there for 2 hours, and when the girl left, she hugged Fanny. Fanny never told me what she did with the girl. That evening, she called Billy out of turn. The next morning, he handed me his 2 weeks' notice. I found out what had happened 3 years later when Billy, Constance, and their child showed up on a barge in Foul Ridge. The crew and Fanny were playing with the child while I talked to the couple. It turned out that Billy had come aboard because Constance's father wouldn't let her marry him. He even threatened to take revenge on Billy's family if he dared to disobey. Billy's parents told him they didn't care how rich her father was or what he could do to them. But Constance left, and after a month without hearing from her, Billy ran away. When he arrived at his parents' house, Constance found out he was in town and came to his house. She told him that her relatives had kidnapped her and were watching her constantly, so she couldn't find a way to write to him. When she returned, he was gone. Now that he was back, she was ready to run away with him right away and didn't want to go home. He told her he was sorry, but that he had found someone else. She was shocked and asked him how he could forget her so quickly. He patiently explained that he had met the woman of his dreams and that when he returned to the barge, he was going to propose to her. Constance made him tell her everything. She couldn't believe he had chosen a whore over her and lost her temper. After yelling at him, she ran back to her parents. A few days later, she decided she wouldn't give up without a fight. She waited until he left and found out from his parents where he worked. She told me that when she went into Fanny's cabin, Fanny told her in detail about Billy's sexual and food preferences and how to take care of her husband, sexually, emotionally, and at the kitchen table. Fanny told Constance that she should devote herself to making Billy happy, and in return, he would make her the happiest woman on earth. Fanny told her that she had learned this too late. Billy joined the conversation and said that when she dragged him into her hut that night, Fanny sat him down and told him there would be no sex. Then she lectured him on how to please a woman. She told him that if he let Constance get away, he would regret it for the rest of his life. She concluded by saying that whether he went after Constance or not, he would get nothing more from her. She said she didn't like stupid men, no matter how handsome they were. So you're saying that Fanny used what she learned? There were no other men? Only one. My God. Right. Now she's religious. Does she go to church? If we moor on Sunday, she goes to any church she can get to, but she doesn't need to. She's a saint. Of course. Because she marries one of you every night, and you enjoy your honeymoon. That's not the reason. If you see her later, you'll understand. When she came on board, she was in terrible shape. I didn't look at her closely, but she was chubby and swollen. She had spots on her skin, like alcoholics. Damn, like I used to be. The happier she made us, the happier she became, and the better she looked. She was never ugly, just plain and worn out. Now she looks like a model, and her body, well, it's just explosive. She hides it under simple dresses, but she looks 20 years younger than she used to. I think she's about 28. 33. You're kidding. Anyway, you'll notice something else about her. At first, I thought it was just me and the film crew, but other people who've never met her ask me about it. It's like she radiates kindness. When you're within a few feet of her, you can't help but feel good, and if she smiles at you, you're so happy you can hardly stand it. How did she become religious? No one knew Ben was a vicar until one night he got down on his knees and prayed before leaving Fanny's room. She asked him what he was doing, but he ran out of the room. The next day, she cornered him. Soon after that, they started going to her room to study the Bible when we had a break, and the rest of us were playing cards. We were all jealous of him for spending extra time with her and demanded that we be included too. No more poker. We sit at the table, read the King James Bible, and argue about the meaning of every sentence. Fanny is the smartest, and when we look up the official answers, she's usually right. Sometimes I believed my barge was a madhouse. How else could you explain how we spent our free time? She even made us do charity work. It started with reading poems about prostitutes. Rusty announced that he would no longer go to brothels. Everyone except Jack chimed in that they hadn't been there in months. He promised it was his last time. Fanny congratulated us all and asked each of us to let her know when we had made it 6 months. That was easy. When we had all made it 6 months, She asked each of us to get tested for venereal disease and bring her the results. We all signed up at the clinic and proudly showed her the results at dinner. A few weeks later, after the evening wedding, she said she had a wedding gift for Sterling and gave Boris an empty pill box. The next morning, he told us that she had been taking the pills for a month and had told him not to wear anything until he felt like finding someone else. None of us have used contraception since. Who needs anyone else when you have Fanny? What does all this have to do with charity? One evening at dinner, Fanny asked if we knew any women in the town where we would be mooring the next day. Jack was the only one who admitted it. She asked when he had last seen her, and he replied that it had been over 9 months. She said that this woman probably had a hard life and was counting on Jack's 20 pounds when he was in town. It was unfair that she was losing income through no fault of her own. The next day, we all went to visit our friends as usual. But instead of giving them 20 pounds an hour, we gave them 10, blessed them, and said goodbye. Now we do that in every town where one of the guys knows a woman. It's as normal as going to the grocery store. And now she knows all of them too. Really? It all started when one of the women asked Boris why we weren't paying 10 pounds. The lady insisted on meeting Fanny, and Fanny didn't mind. Soon the lady started going to church with us on Sundays. She brought her friends with her. Now they call themselves the Women's Club and have tea after church. Sometimes the pastor joins them. The same thing has happened in 4 other towns. Over tea, they never talk about their lives, only about the scriptures. But sometimes they ask Fanny about something in private. One of them told me that they already know what she will say because she always tells them the same thing. No matter what they do, they must do it with love, even if that love is not mutual. One of them wanted to quit her profession, and Fanny asked the priest to help this woman. Everyone likes the story about Maysoon the most. She didn't get along with other women and ridiculed them for going to church. She didn't have any regular clients because she scared away all the men she met. She is a beautiful Pakistani woman, so she always attracted strangers. When she heard about Fanny, Mason went to see her. When Fanny didn't shame or humiliate her, Mason opened up to her. As a teenager, she had been abused, and this filled her with hatred for all men. She even despised her only regular client, a young widower with 2 small children. One day she asked him why he kept coming to her when she treated him with such contempt. He replied that he deserved it, because he used her for his needs once a month instead of being with his children. Fanny told her that despite what men had done to her and what they wanted from her, she would be happier if she gave each client as much love as she could. When Maysoon first showed her love for the widower, he was confused. The second time, he asked her why she was behaving this way. She took him to tea, where she introduced him to Fanny, and Fanny asked him to go with Maysoon to the Banshee. She spent an hour alone with each of them. Now they are married, and every time we are in that town, Fanny spends the whole day with their children. Maysoon said that Fanny asked her not to be offended that she loved the children so much, because they were the closest thing she had to her own children. What a story. Is there anything else you haven't told me? Oh, yes, she's singing tomorrow. So she's a singer now? Does she have a good voice? Has she ever been? Tell me about her singing. Remember I told you that one night was different from the others? No, you told me that? So she sings on that night instead of... She only sings one night a year. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow is April 28th, and on that night she sings, but it's not interesting to listen to her. Because of her voice? No, because she's in a lot of pain. She doesn't drink anymore, except on April 28th. After breakfast, she drinks all day. We have to make dinner ourselves. In the evening, she always says, "Now I'll sing our song, because today is our anniversary," and she starts singing. The stranger stirred in his chair as Captain Ahab began to sing softly in his rough voice. Love is the sweetest thing that can be in the world that brings such happiness, like an old love story. He stopped singing and said, "I knew that tune. It's a song by Al Bowley. Everyone knew it." Now Fanny makes us sing along, starting with the second verse, and when she sings the last two lines, we fall silent. I only hope that fate will bring you a love story. Then she blows us kisses and runs to her cabin. The next morning, we don't talk about it because we realize it upsets her, and we don't sing that song when she's around. Only tomorrow. Only on April 28th. The captain was lost in thought for a moment. The stranger looked up at the ceiling, then interrupted the captain's musings. "Thank you, Captain Ahab. I want to apologize again for my behavior. You have been very generous with your time and given me more than I expected. Now, I want to tell you something, and then ask you a favor." "Fire away," said the captain. "I have a surprise for Fanny tonight. She has never heard me recite the long version of my wedding vows." Fanny and Boris stood facing the captain, as always, with their eyes downcast. Fanny raised her head and looked questioningly at the captain. "Don't raise your head until I'm finished, or it won't be official," he warned her. She smiled and looked back at the floor as he began. "This room in which we are now gathered has been duly authorized in accordance with the law for the celebration of marriage. You are here to witness the union of Vanessa and Sterling. If anyone present knows of any legal impediment to this marriage, they must declare it now. I will ask each of you to state in turn that you are not aware of any legal reasons preventing your marriage. Vanessa, repeat after me. I solemnly declare that I am not aware of any legal impediments to my marriage to Sterling." Fanny repeated these words. "Sterling, repeat after me. I solemnly declare that I am not aware of any legal impediments to my marriage to Vanessa." When Boris uttered these words, the door at the back of the room opened. A stranger entered who had spent the whole day hiding in the captain's cabin. The others, who had heard about him from the captain, turned to look at him. The captain noticed that he had shaved off his beard. "Repeat after me. I, Vanessa, call upon all here present to witness that I take you, Sterling, to be my lawful husband." Fanny finished, and Boris began to repeat his part after the captain. As he did so, he stepped aside, and the stranger took his place. As soon as Boris had finished, the captain hastily concluded, "Now I gladly declare you man and wife. You may kiss the bride." Fanny raised her head and looked at the captain, feeling strong arms embrace her. She began to protest and looked at the stranger who was holding her and bringing his head closer to hers. She screamed and lost consciousness. When she came to a few minutes later, she blinked several times, and the stranger gently wiped her forehead with a damp handkerchief. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," she could barely whisper. He bent down, put his arms around her waist, and lifted her up until she was standing. Then he picked her up, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. He turned sideways to pass through the narrow doorway with her, and a shower of confetti rained down on them. The men cheered loudly. He managed to drag her into the cabin and lay her on the bed. Then he collapsed into a chair. She stared at him and cried softly. "I'm sorry," he said. "I tricked you into marrying me again. If you want, you can annul the marriage tomorrow. No one knows except the captain and the crew." She tried to say something, but only murmured softly. The only thing he heard was, "honeymoon." "There will be no honeymoon tonight," he said. "I'll only stay long enough to make sure you're all right. Then I'll go back to the hotel. But I'll be here for breakfast." Life returned to her eyes, and she sat up. Her voice was completely restored when she spoke. "You're not going anywhere, Sterling. I'll postpone the honeymoon for one night so you don't have to take your clothes off. But tonight I'll sleep in your arms, even if I have to put a team on guard at my door to keep you from running away." They talked for hours before falling asleep, but they didn't talk about the past or the present, only about the future. The night was quiet, with only the faint creaking of old beams as the barge rocked gently at the dock. Moonlight glinted on the deck, pooling and slowly dripping into the cabin porthole. It crept slowly across the floor, liquid silver and gold, until it reached the sleeping figures on the bed. Sterling felt a light touch tickle him and stirred restlessly. He opened his eyes and saw the moonlight tangled in Vanessa's hair, forming a soft halo. He sighed and fell back asleep. In the morning, she told the others about her decision. "You have a new crew member who will be working for free for a few weeks. He will be sleeping with me. Last night was my last wedding. I have a few ideas about how to find a replacement. There are many women on unemployment who would be perfect for this job, but they don't know it exists. I'll find you a good one who can cook. Don't expect anything more from her. Once she settles in, Sterling and I will come home. But you haven't seen the last of us. There's room for all of you in our house. Even after you have children, there will be room for them. And we'll go on canal cruises on vacation, mooring next to the Banshee." The best candidate for the position turned out to be a young, beautiful widow who answered all of Vanessa's leading questions satisfactorily. She tried to hide her religious beliefs from Vanessa because she thought it would scare men away, but Vanessa found out. When the woman had finished her questions, Vanessa said to her, "This is not part of your job description, but I want you to know what I've been doing here." She began by telling her about her marriage and divorce, and then told the woman everything. When she finished, the woman was so shocked that she could barely stand. "I couldn't let you take this job without knowing all this," Vanessa said, looking at the woman. "But I want to assure you once again that you will only be doing cooking and cleaning." After the woman disembarked, still in a state of shock, Vanessa turned to Captain Ahab. "I doubt we'll see her again. She looked at me like I was the devil incarnate." "No need to go into such detail with the next one," he suggested. The next morning, the woman returned and quickly boarded the ship, heading straight for the galley where Vanessa was cleaning up after breakfast. She watched Vanessa silently until she finished, then walked around the barge, looking around. "Everyone's in the village. Let's go to my cabin and close the door," Vanessa suggested. The woman left 2 hours later. When the crew returned, Vanessa told them that a new cook was starting the next morning. She and Sterling planned to stay on board for a few days in the captain's cabin, while Ahab would sleep on the sofa. "Don't be as strict with her as you are with me," she warned. "She's a little shy, so praise her and tell her she's doing a good job." Later, she told Sterling in detail about the meeting. All the widow's questions were about sex and religion. She hadn't been with a man in 3 years. But she couldn't get Vanessa's story out of her head and didn't notice that she had reached ecstasy. Vanessa said that the woman seemed ready to take on what she called additional responsibilities immediately. However, she was a little worried about what her vicar would think, and even more worried about whether she would be able to satisfy the men. Vanessa reassured her and said that the men would be more interested in pleasing her than in what she did for them. She referred the woman to several vicars on their route. Vanessa suggested that she tell one of them everything, including how much she needed the job and that she wouldn't take a penny for sex. Over the next few days, the two women spent most of their time in the cook's cabin discussing recipes and sex. Vanessa advised the new cook not to rush things and to let the men get used to her as a cook before telling the captain if she was willing to do more. She also had to keep a close eye on gifts, making sure she spent as much or more on the men than they spent on her. Vanessa and Sterling said goodbye to everyone in Kegel to loud applause, tears, toasts, and pints of Timothy Taylor's beer. Captain Ahab was drunk as a skunk when he raised a toast to Sterling's second wife being kinder to him than the bitch he married the first time around. Sterling looked at Vanessa with a worried expression, but she was holding her sides with laughter. Before parting ways at Lord Rodney's bar, Vanessa sang her song along with the men, ignoring the fact that the words were breaking her voice. The new chef was their only listener. When the last lines rang out in the damp air, she put her finger to her lips, letting everyone know that this was the last thing she wanted to say to them that evening. I just hope that fate will give you a love story.